John, wait. My guest today is John. This system, most of the system around you is as old as you, or older than you, actually. But the first question is, are you an audiophile?
I guess so. I think
You
so.
guess so.
Yeah. I struggle with that.
I know, most people do.
Yeah, because I'm not sure, because I've been with such limited things. Although I'm curious about the whole hobby and the genre, and I'm always curious about everything. I guess, yes. The answer is yes.
All right. But the thing is, you, of all people, you were born into it because of these speakers, which are older than you. So you have pictures of yourself with these speakers as you're in diapers.
My mother nursing me in front of these speakers.
Yeah. So that's, sorry, you're in a special category of audiophile. You know, you had no choice. You know?
Right. I was born into it.
Yeah. It actually starts with your grandfather building. What did he build in this system?
Well, he built the amplifier. He put the Dynakit Stereo 70 together for my father. He bought it. My dad bought it as a kit, but he didn't know how to put things together. And my grandfather knew a lot about radio and things like that, and he put it together for my father.
Wow. And when was that? Do you know?
62, I believe.
Oof. So that amp is 60 years old.
Yeah, the amp is 60 years old.
All right. But I mean, it's so great to have a vintage system that wasn't like bought later and carefully curated.
One owner, one family owner.
Yeah, that is special.
Yeah.
So, yes, you had no choice.
Yeah.
So okay, so that's the amp. And the Mac, you said is a C11 preamp?
It's a C11 preamp, yeah.
So it's obviously all tube, and so is the Dynaco.
Correct.
And when did that come into the picture? The Mac?
The Macintosh was, I'm pretty sure he got everything around, I think the speakers were first. The Macintosh and the Dynaco were 62. Circa 62, either 61 or 62. Now the C11 was only around for 3 years. So it had to be either 1960, 61, or 62.
Yeah, I think 61 or something. Because when I did that C22 Mac review, I'm pretty sure that was 62, and this precedes it, so it would be.
Okay. I mean, that makes I wasn't around, so and I never asked my father exactly, so I have to take an educated guess.
We can look it up later.
Yeah, and my older brother, he's 6 years older than me, so he has a little bit more. He said, no, we had that in the old house, so it has to be before 1965.
Wow. And I have the best vision. What is on top of the Mac? What is that?
That's a Dynatuner, a Dynaco tuner. It's an FM3, but it has an FM1 faceplate on it. Because I actually swapped that out because I think the FM1 faceplate looks cooler than the FM3 faceplate. It's all silver.
Okay. And when was that from?
Well, actually, that's the one, I probably should have prefaced this.
Okay.
That's the one thing that wasn't his.
Oh, okay.
He had a KLH tuner.
Okay.
I bought that from the guy who restored my amp because I thought it looked cool.
Fits right in.
And it sounded cool.
Right.
And it's period.
Yeah.
So that was, I just thought that would fit right in perfectly.
Right. But it's the speakers, of all this. I mean, I think it's all really nice, and you're keeping it moving forward. You're preserving it as best as possible. But you said that the speakers were modded by you, right?
By me, yeah. I mean, they were it was like 2004-ish, 5-ish. I found out that AR put out a kit to upgrade the AR2s and the 2As to 2AXs.
Okay.
Or 2Xs, respectively. If you had the 2, it was 2X. If you had the 2A, it was 2AX. So there was a place down in Nashville that sold these AR kits. So I bought the kit, and I had my friend who restored the Dynaco amp modify the speakers to make them 2AXs.
And what was when you did it? Did it sound better? I hope so.
It did. It did. It was. I had a lot more high end. It was just opened up the sound stage. it was clearly noticeable. I mean, and also, you know, they were recapped. The crossover was rebuilt, so the speakers were tired. You know, it was like an old workhorse that was still doing its job, but it needed some. It needs to be put out to pasture. Or at least it needed an injection of something.
Right.
You know?
A little TLC.
Yeah, a little TLC. But the amazing thing is, you know, the woofers are all original.
Wow.
And they have never been touched, except the spider came loose once.
But
and
the
one
surrounds
of them,
were okay.
Surrounds were okay. Those old cloth surrounds. And it's amazing because my father gave me the speakers when I was in like 10th grade, which was like in the early 80s. And it was a huge upgrade for me sound-wise.
What did you have before that?
Pip Speaks, which were from Lafayette. They were these little speakers, and they weren't bad for. But when I got these, I just felt like. I think that's when I kind of knew I was an audiophile, because it was like I loved how great everything sounded. Everything sounded big, and those woofers were powerful, and you know, and I blasted them 3 hours every day. I blasted them 3 hours every day after school. I kid you not.
Yeah. Did you buy records on the way home from school?
I did. That was my obsession. I didn't spend a lot of money on clothes or anything else.
Me too.
I saved all my money up for records. You know, it's so funny when I think about it. I bought only a couple of pieces of audio gear in my life. Usually it was given to me as Christmas presents or whatever from my parents, right? I had like, you know, the Technics tuner or receiver when I was growing up, and Technics turntables, and I had an Optonica integrated for a while, but I think the only things I bought were turntables and CD players through the years.
Right. Well, what about this turntable, the VPI? How did that happen? Because it's sort of the outlier in the system, right? It doesn't fit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the Marantz CD player as well.
Oh, yeah, well,
really, but
that's just this newfangled digital stuff.
I kind of feel like the turntable, because it's such a precise, delicate instrument, it should be newer.
I understand the logic. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. You've gone this far.
But I still have my original turntable. It's in storage.
Okay. What's that?
It's a Technics SLQD3 that I got, I think, Christmas of 1982. It still works.
Well, that's vintage.
I have a VPI record cleaning machine, which I love. And then I found out that they also made turntables, which I didn't know. And I started researching, and I wanted one. I also liked the fact that it was made in New Jersey, because the whole system is made in the Northeast.
Yeah.
So the speakers were made in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The preamplifier was made in Binghamton, New York, and the tuner and the amp were made in Philadelphia. So the turntable was made in New Jersey. So
yeah,
it's a nice little radius.
Yeah, I'd say. Okay.
Loyal to the Northeast. And so I bought the VPI 3 years ago.
So this is amazing. Oh, and the stands. Did we do the stands?
I don't know if we talked about the stands. So I used to have those on some like iron metal. No, they weren't iron. Well, it was whatever. They were metal stands. Yeah. But when I had the spider reglued in one of the speakers, I went to this guy who used to be an AR dealer, and he restores old AR speakers, and he had a garage filled with AR replacement parts. And one of the things he had was the original plans for the AR stands, which came as an option if you wanted to buy these speakers and you bought the stands. So he makes them exactly precisely as they were made. And so they're reproduction, but they're honest reproduction.
You are more than an audiophile. You have a life outside audio, and you're essentially a filmmaker. Is that?
Yeah, I'm a film editor, sometime producer, but mainly an editor.
And the poster, which I'll cut in, I will insert there. So you were involved in this Ramones movie?
Yeah, end of the century.
Wow.
Yeah, documentary on the Ramones.
So what are the Ramones really like?
That's another video. Steve, that's another video. They are the Ramones. They
the
were the
Ramones.
Ramones. Yeah, they were the Ramones. They were funny, quirky, very New York. My brother directed the film, produced the film, and he had a relationship with them, which is why we were able to make the film. And that he was like, at the end of that, it was like Father Maron from The Exorcist, when they give him the note that you're needed for another exorcist. Like, and because we did a Graham Parker movie not long after that.
And what's that movie called?
It's called Don't Ask Me Questions.
Okay.
And so it was like, okay, we're going back into the rockumentary world. But it was an adventure. I mean, the Ramones are not boring. Let's put it that way.
So there was interviews, but also live stuff? You were shooting live?
Yeah, we shot some live stuff of them at the Stone Pony. We shot all the interviews with them. It was funny. We had this great shot of the Ramones on Top of the Pops doing "Baby I Love You," excuse me, with a full orchestra.
Wow!
Right? It was amazing. The Ramones in their ripped jeans and the leather jackets, and a whole string section behind them. These guys in their 50s and 60s. It was amazing, and we had it in the film. And Phil said we couldn't use it unless there was no negative stuff said about Phil in the movie. So we were like, well, whatever the Ramones said about Phil is what the Ramones said about Phil. So we're not going to change it. So we couldn't use "Baby I Love You," but to get even, when we took it out, we filled that time with more negative stuff about Phil. That's what Ramones said.
Good. Wow.
We got even.
But how do you get the rights? How do you select the live stuff that you did make yourself? How do you get it?
You mean, how do you make the decision to put the live stuff
like
that
what's
we used?
in and negotiations about how much money you're going to pay and all that?
Yeah, well,
Seems like a
luckily
major
there was a
expense.
deal. There was already a deal with the Ramones for the rights of the music, so we didn't have to worry too much about their music. It was other people's music.
But the question about the Ramones movie is it's not available right now, right? But it's, you think soon this year?
I think it's still available on Amazon. I think the DVD is still available.
Okay.
But
DVD? No Blu-ray?
What's that? Yeah. Did we ever do no, we never did a Blu-ray.
Okay.
But I did do the bump up to HD because we did it in SD because we made the film it was released in 2005. And we started it in 1999. It's a really interesting story. When we started the film, all the Ramones were alive, right? We started filming and Joey died, which derailed everything a little bit. Then we got back together and decided we were going to use a lot of archival stuff of Joey, and we had a lot of audio tapes of interviews, so we were able to make it happen. Right. When we got into editorial, Dee Dee died, the bass player. And it was like, this is getting grim. I'm sorry, Steve. But we flew to London to interview Joe Strummer for our movie, which was amazing. And Joe, this was right after Dee Dee had died. Joe was really shaken by Dee Dee's death. And he was an amazing interview. We fly back, finish editorial. Joe Strummer died 6 months later. It was like, oh my God. And then the movie comes out in the theaters. Finally, it's released, and Johnny died of cancer. I mean, it was, my brother and I felt like we were the rock and roll Grim Reapers.
I was going to say, maybe there's a cause and effect there. I don't know. Well, anyway. But it's good. But you said it's going to come out in a bigger way.
The streaming release is going to be relatively soon. That's in negotiations. But it's, it's around people. It's so funny when I meet people and they're saying, oh, we'll be talking about documentary film and whatever. If there was something musical that was out, people would say, did you ever see this film, End of the Century? I mean, it's like 3 or 4 times this happened to me. I was like, yeah, that's my movie. That's our movie.
Wow.
So, oh my, what do you mean that's your movie? It's like, well, just look at the poster,
Right.
It has our name on it.
It's
great to birth something that has legs.
Yeah, and will only grow probably.
Hopefully,
because there is not another one, another Ramones.
Well, there are, but ours was the first one that was agreed. It was the first official one. It was the first one that the Ramones participated in collectively. Something was put out by their manager, which was just a concert film, but it wasn't a documentary on the Ramones. And there were other things that came out, like I think people used Marky's. Marky was the drummer who replaced Tommy Ramone. He had some footage that he took on a high-8 camera when they were touring, and they put together something. That's not a documentary on the Ramones. So ours was, and I think there may have been one or two after ours, but ours was the first, and ours was the one that let out all the dirty laundry that people never heard before. That was all. That's because my brother had a relationship with them, and they put their trust in him.
Well, that's good.
That wasn't easy for him.
Right. Well, that's. But you're right now an editor.
I'm an editor. Yeah, it's the film and sound was the family business. So, because my father was a sound production recordist for film and TV. He worked on films like West Side Story and On the Town with Sinatra and Gene Kelly.
Wow.
And he did Breakfast at Tiffany's and a bunch of TV. He did all of Car 54, Where Are You?
Well, you should say that first. Wow.
And he did, you know, a bunch of commercials and stuff like that. But he was always in New York, you know, working in.
So as you were growing up, did you see that that's where you were going?
Well, I wanted to be a rock star. I was
well, after that.
a drummer in a band. Yeah, after that, I was, because I did work with my dad for a while in film, in sound. But I didn't really like it. I didn't like being on the set. I thought it was really dull. Because you spend a lot of time just sitting around.
Waiting. A lot of waiting.
A lot of waiting. But my uncle was an editor, because my father and all his brothers worked in the film business. My Uncle Al was a post mixer. He did a lot of famous films. He did Woody Allen's movies and stuff like that. My other uncle was an editor. My other uncle was an assistant director. So I thought, wow, Uncle Vinny's an editor. That sounds really interesting. Maybe I'll do a move over to post-production. So
this is good. And you're an audiophile. Wait, I got to say that again. So,
I really am, because I have, we're not saying this, but I have backup gear. I do have other things when they're, you know, because
it's old stuff.
Yeah. It's old stuff. Sometimes it needs some TLC. You know, the old gray mare, she ain't what she used to be. So when I send the preamp out, maybe for some maintenance or something, I pull out. I have a shit preamp, Saga Plus, I think, the one with the one tube.
Okay.
And the Manny phono stage. But I love having backup stuff, because if I need to test something, if I hear a weird noise, what was it?
Right.
Then I have to go and, you know, put on my MacGyver outfit and,
that's
start
good.
dissecting.
Maintain whatever sanity you have. It's important.
But my question to you is, Steve, am I an audiophile if I've never bought a pair of speakers in my entire life?
I always say it's not how much money you spend on the system that makes you an audiophile.
Okay.
Being an audiophile is what you being involved and listening and, you know, focused listening, that sort of thing. That's what makes you an audiophile.
Okay, then I
So
definitely 100% am.
I grant you an audiophile in this. Absolutely. How about you?
Well, you know what's amazing? I'm in a couple of Facebook groups. You know, there's a huge Facebook group for AR speakers in Italy. The Italians love old AR speakers. Big, diehard fans. So I'm in the Dynaco group. I'm in the Vintage Macintosh group, and in the acoustic research group. The acoustic research one requires a lot of translation, you know. But
I don't know. I smell another documentary in the works. All right, John. Thank you.
Thank
you. It's been great.
Awesome.
You're exceptional in so many ways.
Well, thank you.
Till next time. Bye-bye.